I'm convinced that Terminator Dark Fate is the worst of the sugar and spice empowered woman reboot film trends that has sucked more money out of Hollywood than the coronavirus. With Harvey Weinstein taking the fall for numerous Hollywood producers that traded sexual favors for roles for many years, the town's elite felt it was best to go ahead and overcorrect, ruining no less than 50% of their multi-decade franchises with girl power movies that nobody asked for, and in the end, nobody would pay for. And this has continued to this day, producing screen gems like Ocean's 8, Charlie's Angels, which sucked despite it being an originally all-female cast, rumors of an all-female Fight Club, and maybe most notorious, Paul Feig's 2016 Ghostbusters, which succeeded in swinging enough people away from trusting women at all to secure a Donald Trump presidency. Girl power is the blaxploitation of the 2020s, and we will look at it with just as much cringe. But the film I will probably always remember as jumping the shark for this gimmick will be Terminator Dark Fate. Terminator is a franchise that has done just about all you can do with it. It wasn't killed by Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genesis, but it certainly was beaten into submission. And deep down, all Terminator fans hoped and prayed this was all due to the absence of one man, one critical gear in the engine of this franchise, James Cameron. So when it was announced that there was going to be a new James Cameron Terminator film, and even better, this film was going to retcon us back to the end of T2, making all the other bad movies irrelevant, we were overjoyed. Cameron is back! And if the movie is good, we can forget the other ones and finally have a proper Terminator trilogy. Then we learned the film would be directed by Tim Miller, and it was just a story Cameron had helped to develop, and he would be producing, not directing. Well, alright, we'll give it a try. At least a gatekeeper to the good Terminator lore would be on hand, right? And after all, Tim Miller gave us Deadpool. It could be good. We held out hope like children from a poor family waiting for Santa to finally magically bring us some expensive new toys. And then we got this promotional photo. Okay, so Sarah Connor is there, which means indeed Terminator 3 never happened. She was supposed to be dead years before in that film. But why is Jackie from that 70s show here? And why is Dylan Roof looking so buff? This was our first real sign that this film was going to be bad. And it was. Not just bad, monumentally bad. As we all held our breath and prayed that this would not be a girl power Terminator, Tim Miller provided this quote to crush our spirits and ensure nobody spends money on this film.
If you're at all enlightened, she'll play like gangbusters. If you're a closet misogynist, she'll scare the fuck out of you because she's tough and strong but very feminine. We did not trade certain gender traits for others. She's just strong, and that frightens some dudes. You can see online the responses to some of the early shit that's out there. Trolls on the internet, I don't give a fuck.
And with that, all fans of the franchise knew we were in for a wild ride. The probability for a film being good that is prefaced with, "If you don't like it, you're a sexist," is roughly hovering around 0%. Typically, with a Terminator sequel, you're interested in what new tech Skynet has to throw at you. From robot skeleton to liquid metal to robot skeleton with liquid metal and guns, to all the future canon robots, the nanotech John Connor. But with Terminator Dark Fate, it's clear what's amazing and revolutionary is the fact that the protagonist has a vagina, just like in every other Terminator movie. Having a vagina is literally one of the two entry-level choices for humanity. Nothing could be more mundane. And speaking of nothing, nothing could prepare fans of the Terminator franchise for what Tim Miller and James Cameron would do to seem enlightened and woman-friendly in case any of their interns decided to talk. Terminator Dark Fate is Ghostbusters 3 with robots. I mean that, and I plan to prove it. Terminator movies typically follow a formula, so Dark Fate wouldn't necessarily be ruined by recycling a few gimmicks. All the Terminator films do that. We're used to that by now. The basic Terminator formula is as follows. Skynet sends a Terminator back to kill Sarah or John or both. Resistance sends one protector. Both rush to find the target while we get to know the target as a character. They find the target at about the same time. Fight and chase ensue. We get some character and story development while the Terminator kills a bunch of people while hunting his target. Then we get a second chase that ends in some manner of industrial facility that has the very rare technology and resources it would take to kill a Terminator. And that's it. Every decent Terminator film, I guess technically including 3, will have these elements. In that order. But only Dark Fate gives up completely on trying to add anything to the story. They wipe the chalkboard, complete reset, and the movie begins. The first thing this new film establishes is the death of John Connor, In true 2019 film fashion, we annihilate the central characters of the old story. This time by way of a second Terminator that comes back in 1998 and shoots John Connor while he's spitting some game to a girl in Mexico while his mom watches. Now, to people who might be new to the franchise, this might just seem like a story device for Sarah's character development. But in reality, it's kicking fans of the franchise who have suffered through 3 terrible Terminator movies and still remained loyal until Cameron came back, right in their teeth. Yeah, John Connor, remember? The person whose mother was targeted in the first movie because even the idea of him was so dangerous. The lovable scamp from the second movie who taught a robot how to love and seemingly ended the future war. The guy who gets to score Claire Danes and destroy Skynet and come back as a host to Terminator Nanotech. Oh, okay, roll that back. Fuck everything but the first 2 movies. So the prophesized military genius trained from birth to end Skynet. Yeah, that guy didn't matter. In fact, as soon as the future was changed in Terminator 2 and Skynet wasn't even a thing anymore, another AI took its place. Legion. Because God forbid Hollywood writers have more talent and creativity than professional wrestling. How's this explained? Inevitability? They just Thanos that shit? I am inevitable? They don't explain it. This is just what happens. They give it the Matrix treatment. Absolutely not starting out well. And let's not forget, this film came out on the heels of a number of gender-swapped for no reason girl power cinema mistakes. The largest of which, Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. And this film seems to keep that failing theme going.
It's time to let old things die.
So Cameron and company have officially retconned the Terminator franchise to turn it into a gender-bent action flick. And again, mark my words, there will come a day when we look back at these girl power action movies with the same cringy disdain as we see blaxploitation films in today, without all the comedy and creativity of Dolomite. So how do you turn the Terminator into a femme-positive film to inspire girls to fight giant robots, I guess? Well, step 1, kill off that pesky boy that it's all about. But in doing so, you kinda killed off Sarah too. I mean, after all, she saved billions of human lives, sacrificed her whole life to protect the future, and it means nothing, because Legion. Terminator Duck Fart starts in Mexico, or something, where we meet our protagonist, cyborg chick Kyle Reese. Cyborg chick Kyle Reese is an enhanced human whose mission is to protect the leader of the future human resistance. Ugh, never heard that before. Danny Ramos. They try to fool you into assuming that this time it's just like the first Terminator film and Danny's child is gonna be humanity's savior. But hey, surprise! It's actually Danny! Spoiler. Anyway, the idea of cyborg humans might be the dumbest part of this that nobody ever talks about. Yeah, we get it. She looks like Dylan Roof and acts like a lesbian activist having an especially bad day. But all that might be forgivable if she wasn't enhanced. Credit where credit's due, it is hard writing women to be action movie badasses who compete with men on the level of brute strength. Obviously, this is because women, as a rule, are not the sex that evolved to solve problems with brute strength. They don't have it. And this works out well in a lot of situations. In the other Terminator films, Sarah Connor had to use her knowledge of military tactics, use weapons, outthink the Terminator. And before that, she was an untrained, scared 19-year-old young woman who was at this thing's mercy, if not for Kyle Reese protecting her and making the ultimate sacrifice to blow the Terminator in half so she could luck out and crush it in a hydraulic press. My point is, that's what makes a good female action character. But Grace, there is no woman here. She plays a man's role. She's strong like a man, quick like a man, apparently she knows kung fu, and she has some manner of computer-assisted heads-up display vision. Yeah, I think there's a word for this. I'm sorry, but it has to be said. Grace is a Mary Sue, and we don't get any character development. No internal struggle or consequence for her choice to give up her humanity to become part robot to save Danny. No. No feelings of betrayal to wrestle with when she wakes up to find out she's been turned into the very thing she hates the most, a machine. Nah, fuck that. Cause she can punch things. Did the writers of Terminator Dark Fate ever stop to consider that humans being at a huge handicap is part of what makes the Terminators scary? Even when Terminators start showing up as the good guys, we get better Terminators that make them almost obsolete as the bad guy. Even the crappy sequels understood that. But in Dark Fate, James Cameron comes back to the franchise as an in-name only producer and throws all this shit out of the window. Forget being at a disadvantage. Forget having to use careful planning and tactical advantages and awesome weapons to barely get over on a soulless killing machine from the future. You know, all that stuff that makes the Terminator scary? Forget that. We have enhanced humans now. And because surely that wouldn't be enough, here's a T-800 to put in your party as well. And because of this lack of appreciation for nuance and a severe need to make girls look really strong, that's every confrontation in the film. Rev 9 shows up, they straight up fist fight, Rev 9 gets blasted or tossed somewhere, and everyone runs away. Rev 9 is one of the most unoriginal add-ons of the Terminator franchise since, well, the last movie when Arnold gets a weird T-1000 upgrade. But we retconned that nonsense and it never happened. So now this is the worst. The Rev 9 is proof that the writers, producers, and director of this festival of mistakes didn't care one bit. So Rev 9 isn't from Skynet. It's from a different future, where Legion is the giant AI super Satan. And even though it's from a completely different timeline where Miles Bennett Dyson is dead, Skynet never becomes a thing, and pneumatic polyalloy probably never gets invented, somehow Legion was able to figure out how to build a bullshit bootleg TX with no weapons from Terminator 3. Which is ironic for the film that flat out says everything since Terminator 2 was trash, we get it, we're throwing it all out and continuing after Terminator 2. So your first order of business to rewrite the series is to cover a Terminator in liquid metal? That's all you got? And these don't even have onboard weapons. It can split into two Terminators, essentially a T-800 and a T-1000, and they can act independently of one another. Which I guess is cool, but we've kind of seen this already. And the last one had guns and big boobs. It makes me want the TX back. You have this brand new AI killing things, and for some reason it produces T-800s in a universe where they never existed. Even if we stretch our suspension of disbelief to the very limits, we can't both believe that the computer apocalypse and human skeleton robot killers would be a thing in both timelines. The original Terminator was, for all intents and purposes, a horror film. An urban industrial cyberpunk horror about not only being hunted by a cold, calculating, inhuman killer, but also the sword of Damocles of an impending apocalypse and war. It was kind of scary stuff. In the first film, we end on Sarah driving into Mexico, pregnant, after surviving this nightmare. And we see a storm on the horizon as this ominous line takes us home.
He said there's a storm coming in.
I know.
Even if you beat the monster, you cannot escape the future where these things will be mass-produced and you're the only one that knows it, or even holds the key to stopping it. And that's where it leaves us. Terminator 2 picks up where they left off by actually stopping the future war. Sarah's older now, and she's been shacking up with numerous gun runners and drug lords to teach John all the necessary skills to be a great future military leader. She sacrificed her entire life, happiness, and future to prepare for the war we learned about in Part 1. She's hardened, but still very in love with Kyle Reese. She's cold, tactical, and from some perspectives, kind of a bad mom. I mean, look at this scene.
I said it was okay.
She wasn't just aching to hold and hug her son after all these years. Her job long ago was to protect him, which is kind of taking precedence over loving him in some ways. And this makes sense after what she's been through. Even in the institution, she didn't miss John. She was worried about his safety. Her duty has become to simply keep him alive and train him. Keeping John alive was being a mother, and she did it pretty well. And as a result, she sacrificed other motherly traits, compassion, some of her femininity. She wasn't able to have any peace, but she still had hope, even if it meant she had to assassinate Miles Dyson and run to Mexico. And that's what the film ends on.
Because if a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too.
This time the highway is a dark night. The future is once again a mystery, but she can't see if there's a storm approaching or not. In true Terminator fashion, we don't get confirmation that the war doesn't happen, but it certainly looks better. Even though you left a Terminator arm in the gear back there. So we meet back up with Sarah Connor in Terminator Dark Fate, where she pulls up, calmly shotguns one half of the Rev 9 and rockets another. Then she throws a grenade and steals a catchphrase.
I'll be back.
What's very off-putting at first here is seeing Sarah Connor on the offensive. Yeah, she's old, but an older Sarah Connor could be okay. She's just never been on the offensive with one of these things. She has zero prior experience where fighting a Terminator was a better idea than running from it. Literally all of their plans before were to run from this thing. But here we are, years later, and Sarah is hunting them. How does she think this is gonna go without a vat of molten steel or a hydraulic press? She, and we, have seen these things survive way worse than shotguns and grenades. And she knows damn well that a grenade is not gonna do shit against what I can only assume she thinks is a T-1000 at this point. This is way too calm and offensive for the Sarah Connor character. She's more likely to be in Mexico, drunk in a bungalow somewhere because her entire life's mission to protect the human race from extinction got its chest exploded at a tiki bar. She would be broken by that. Ask yourself what's more likely. Sarah becomes a depressed mess because her entire life's purpose and the only two people she's ever loved have been blown away by Terminators, or that she would use hate for robots as her primary motivation to become an international criminal super assassin. Sarah has always 100% been a reluctant hero. In Terminator 1, she wasn't a hero of any kind. She was dragged into it, and does very little other than provide motivation to Kyle Reese to fight. In T2, due to her training, she was useful with a rifle and didn't snitch.
Call to John now.
But still, she wasn't some invincible Mary Sue. But Dark Fate, no, forget everything you've ever known about women in real life. Because this one, she's a man. Brand new Karen haircut, suicidal, feels no recoil, charges into danger. This is a new empowered Sarah Connor with the emotional depth of a puddle. Remember back when it was kinda sad to see what she had sacrificed in order to prepare John? Fuck that, Sarah's our new hero now. Killing John Connor and making Sarah the tough guy protagonist is like in Jurassic Park 3 when the Spinosaurus killed the T-Rex. You thought we were gonna like this shit? She's rough, tough, and buff. This grandma's cookies bite back. They completely ruined Sarah Connor within the first 60 seconds on screen. Complete overcorrection on this character, trying to make an already badass female some kind of an indestructible super soldier with military and black market connections that are better than most actual arms dealers. Look, we get it. You don't hate women. You don't want to put over that women can't be action heroes. They absolutely can. But you can't play one as a man. It's the same problem as with Grace, and you certainly can't succeed doing it with all three of your lead roles. The other problem with Sarah is the timeline now. Now that we're dealing with Legion, a completely different future than the one Sarah saved, why does she even care? Sarah's big claim to fame was she saved 2 billion human lives. She sacrificed her son her entire life, now for nothing. We're right back to the storm on the horizon. Only this time, Sarah knows it's coming, but has no reason to be anywhere near it. Before, she was protecting John. But now the screenwriters have wiped their asses with her sacrifices. What's her motivation to do anything at all? When she gets the first text with coordinates, goes to the location and sees a Terminator, why doesn't Sarah just nope right out of there? After all, John's dead. He was the target. Who cares now? Anyway, so back to the movie. Sarah delivers her stupid throwback line and pulls out a shotgun that seems to indicate she thinks engaging a T-1000 for all intents and purposes at close range with a shotty is a good idea. And then casually strolls off as if to indicate she encounters new breeds of Terminator just every day. So Grace and Mexican Jackie from that 70s show steal Sarah's ride, and Grace explains that she's tuned for high performance, and that she can only fight for a few minutes before going into diabetic shock. She says they do this because anyone who encounters a Rev 9 has only a few minutes to kill it or you're dead. Which kind of makes sense until you realize that her whole mission is to kidnap this kid and run. A mission to run away would indicate the need for some stamina, and if they can tune people, that was probably an option. Why make such a lopsided character to fight something that even at top strength you can't best in a battle of brute force? So Grace goes into shock and they rob a pharmacy. The pharmacist asks,
Insulin, benzodiazepine.
Perdón. Do you have a doctor's prescription?
which is weird for a Mexican border town. If you've ever been to one, you know what I mean. Sarah shows up and they drag Trans Ivan Drago away in a wood-paneled station wagon, which is kind of a nice touch and a throwback to T2. And they hit up a motel where we get some lesbian wrestling, and Sarah explains who she is. And we learn that Skynet isn't even a thing in the future, and Sarah's entire life and journey in the previous films amounted to exactly nothing. Grace tells Sarah that they don't need her. We have enough indestructible female military figures in this film already, and we still have to fit Arnold in somewhere. But GI Sarah sells herself as an expert on staying off the grid in 2019, with skills like avoid cellular phones in cities, and they let her join their party. Legion is a stupid thing and a stupid idea thought of by lazy, stupid writers, because they were so desperate in their rush to completely wipe away the old film's legacy, instead of coming up with reasons another AI would rise up, or, God forbid it, just call it Skynet. This film just tells us that at some point, later than the expected Judgment Day, literally the same thing happened. And the same war ensues, except strangely, led completely by women. And even the designs of the AI's foot soldiers remain the same. Instead of T-something, they're called Rev 9s now. And that's not liquid metal, no, because polyalloy wouldn't exist, right? It's nanotech, with all the same restrictions, rules, uses, and weaknesses of liquid metal. Oh, and the same time travel technology? Hell yeah, that exists. And apparently with the same rules. Nothing dead can go through, except polymorphic metal technology for some reason. I guess you just have to look like a person. Legion being a thing, and having skeletal-looking Terminators, and for all intents, liquid metal breaks the fucking world. I know that when you're writing a time travel film, the more sequels you make, the more likely you are to write in some kind of paradox. But this just creates too many questions. If we wipe the slate clean post T2, the last thing we learned is that there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. The future isn't written. That's what the machines were supposed to have been wrong about. Skynet was calculating, but it couldn't calculate for humans controlling our own fate. But nah, that's too complicated to write past. Let's just say the same thing happens, but not Skynet, and never explain why or how it becomes the same thing with the same technology. Oh, and without John Connor, the human resistance becomes a feminist army, but the same army. So we return to the film, and our ladies are doing the driving through a desert in a station wagon thing, as she explains that she's been getting text messages from an encrypted line that keeps giving her the locations of Terminators as they arrive. So she frags them. Which is kind of weird, because if my entire experience with Terminators was them hunting me and my family, my first instinct would be to think Skynet or the Terminator was behind the text and trying to get me killed, and stay as far away from them as possible. It's called a trap, Sarah. Military genius Sarah Connor. But instead, Connor has somehow Mary Sued her way into becoming Sarah the Terminator Slayer now, and eats cyborgs for breakfast. Grace snakes Sarah's phone and does something.
What are you doing?
Future shit.
That line enrages me. This is the peak of lazy writing. Future shit. But strangely, I would have appreciated this more as an explanation for Legion than the one we got. It's future shit. If I tell anyone, it messes with time. Fuck your questions. Let's go. Okay! That actually would have made more sense. So Grace reveals that the texts are coming from the same coordinates that have been tattooed on her, and it's where she's supposed to go for help if shit gets thick. I'm not sure why she wasn't already headed there, as the peak of shit getting thick is this Rev 9 finding you, which has happened twice now, but they decide to sneak into America and go to Laredo, Texas, where our mystery guests await. They hop a train for the USA with a bunch of illegals and talk about how terrible the future war is, and Sarah assumes Danny is going to be the mother of some future resistance leader just like her, even though we clearly know she's going to be the great feminist leader. The next day, Sarah and Grace hate fuck one another as they hitch a ride to Danny's uncle's house. And her uncle is about to call bullshit on their obviously made-up story about future robots being why they need to hike into America illegally. But Grace Mr. Miyagi's a fly and all questions are answered. Well, not really. But we have to get to the part where the Rev 9 infiltrates a border patrol checkpoint and murders everyone. Oops. Because nanites can literally do anything with machines, like in Terminator 3. Oh wait, that's not supposed to be a thing. Like Johnny Five's antenna in Short Circuit 2. The Rev 9 is able to jack into the US defense networks and send out a drone, locate Danny out of thousands of illegal migrants crossing every day, and put out an APB on their location. And all this without raising any suspicion at all. Amazing. It's almost like nobody in any of these organizations that would have to be alerted to something like this would have questions like, who is launching our drones and hunting fugitives? Because the entirety of our border patrol services go right to Checkpoint Connor and arrest them. The Rev 9 goes for some bonus points with a kamikaze drone kill, but Grace hears it just in time and spears Danny out of the way just like Gohan did with Vegeta. No, really, it's just like that. The Rev 9 misses, but it doesn't matter because everyone gets arrested anyway and he can just kill them in jail. He gets in easier than the T-1000 of Pascadero Mental Institution. Meanwhile, Grace is busy escaping from surgery and giving us commentary on the US-Mexican border crisis at the time. They're dragging Sarah upstairs and an alarm goes off, signaling Sarah to kick these guys' asses because she's unstoppable despite being a 95-pound elderly woman. But even if she wasn't indestructible, it wouldn't matter, because as a top priority famous fugitive, she's only being escorted by two assholes who pass out as soon as they touch concrete. Grace grabs Danny and they make their escape as the Rev 9 shows us he is a compassionate killer cyborg and slaughters the Border Patrol agents with reckless abandon while not harming any of the innocent immigrants, clearly within killing range and just as in the way as the agents. The girls make their escape as the Rev 9 decides now is the only inappropriate time to use his throwy liquid metal spears, and he goes inside to have a snow cone and pretend he's not clearly on camera murdering 20 Border Patrol agents. They never really address that either, which is in contrast to the T-1000, who always maintained his role as a cop until the Cyberdyne scene where he jacks a helicopter by jumping a motorcycle into it. Damn, that was awesome. Do that one more time. I mean, he does get into a fight at a mall, but that's local cop shit. The Rev 9 just murdered 20 people in front of 100 witnesses, a massacre on video. They would be looking for his face even more fervently than Sarah Connor. I mean, yeah, she kicked the guy in the nuts, but the Rev 9 is who the authorities would be most interested in at this point. Despite that, though, he prances around with a fake Texas accent and no change to his appearance at all. He approaches some DPS agents and we get another callback.
Say, you boys know where I can get my hands on a chopper?
Yo, I'm not a cop, but do all cops get choppers now? What's not suspicious about a Border Patrol agent asking some DPS officers where he can find a chopper? Why would they even know? I know you're not looking for Terminators, but wouldn't they even ask, what the hell do you need a chopper for, and why the hell would we know where Border Patrol keeps it? Does he get his chopper? We don't know yet, we don't find out, we don't care, and it doesn't matter. Nobody's paying attention at this point anyway. We pretend that radar isn't a thing, and our heroes land at the coordinates in Texas the next day, where they're greeted by something that will disgust and horrify all Terminator fans who are still clinging to any hope this film can be redeemed. Enter elderly Arnold, the Boomernator. Because they couldn't figure out how to make a T-800 into a female, they did the next best thing. They neutered it. This is where the film really takes a hard left into anything male is bad. This is an all-female reboot narrative. Meet Carl. Carl is what happens when a soulless killing machine achieves its mission. It develops a conscience, learns a trade, and involves itself in a sexless marriage. Now, we as an audience are willing to believe a lot in order to enjoy a Terminator film. We're willing to go extra far, but there is no way you will ever get me to believe that a woman could marry an 800-pound robot and never realize there was something different about it. I hate Carl so much, it makes me want the TX back. What about sex? They don't.
Our relationship is not physical. She appreciated that they could change diapers efficiently and without any complaints.
Carl's just around because this woman is using him for free labor and babysitting. Neat. This is what the Terminator has become. This is the disdain Hollywood has for their own creation. I guess there might have been a way to do this where Carl was some backwoods loner in a cabin waiting for civilization to end alone, but that a T-800 would learn a trade, marry, and assimilate is a stretch too far. More likely a T-800 would do what he did in Genesis when they jumped from the 80s. Just wait. It would find a location untouched between the original time and now, some desert cave, making one if necessary, where he would await Judgment Day and rejoin Skynet. It would have some manner of plan once its mission was completed. It's not like Skynet sent them back with the purpose of failing, and humanity engaging in finding a fully functional future tech machine would certainly be a threat to Skynet's survival. The T-800 wouldn't have just completed its mission and been like, whoa, what do I do now? And gone into some uncharted territory. And even if it could, even if Skynet was so stupid not to calculate that, the reason the Terminator in T2 was able to learn and become more human is John and Sarah opened up its head and pulled its chip out to take him out of read-only mode. If I'm going to believe that Carl began to learn and become human, I also have to believe that he convinced someone to open up his head and restart him, then murdered that person to keep it all a secret. Then developed a conscience and felt really, really bad about what he did to John. Or hey, you know what? The writers just don't give a shit. The gatekeepers of the Terminator multi-million-dollar legacy and franchise just didn't give a shit. Arnold is a supporting role in a Terminator movie. Dylan Roof is now the new badass nobody asked for. There was something about Arnold as a T-800. The way he moved, the way he talked, it was human enough to pass, but you could see there was something mechanical underneath. But the geriatric android doesn't have any of that. They treat Arnold like this silent third wheel. A tank for the party to slow down the Rev 9 so they can do more important things. Anyway, Sarah seems to hate Carl as much as I do because she tried to unload on him the minute she sees him. Grace stops her like it would have mattered, and Mexican Jackie asks Sarah to hear Arnold out on why he should join their party. Sarah rightly reminds them that Arnold is a fucking killing machine and they're on a mission to avoid being killed by machines. But without knowing jack about shit, Danny says please, and Sarah stands down and goes to sit to have a little cry. When Sarah's done with her little moment, we learn that Arnold has been the one sending those text messages to give her life purpose, which is stupid for reasons we've already listed, and I will summarize again now. Why would you believe Sarah will be able to kill a fucking Terminator all of a sudden? Why would this not look like a trap to her? How would you know exactly where and when Danny and Grace would be on that bridge? Why would you know anything from a totally different future? Why did you not kill Sarah Connor back in Mexico? How did you get her phone number when she specifically keeps her phone in a bag to avoid being tracked? How in a future where T-800s never existed and nobody knows who the hell Sarah Connor is, would Grace have tattooed coordinates to a T-800 on her ribcage? What the hell would he have said if they didn't show up with Sarah Connor? Remember, Grace has this tattoo with no knowledge of Sarah Connor or her existence at all. Let's say she saved Danny and went to the coordinates she was given and met this guy and told him she's from the Human Resistance Against the Legion and was told he would help her. Carl doesn't know what the hell Legion is. He would shut the door. So everyone chills and has some Coronas, and we get our equivalent to when they're at Enrique's house in T2. But instead of Sarah's introspective scenes and John and the Terminator learning from each other and talking about John's childhood, we just learn that Carl's a cuck who gets used for his money and his ability to parent without complaint. This makes everyone else around feel strong as hell and talk about what to do now. Sarah wants to use Danny as bait, choose a kill box, and destroy the Rev 9. Grace, who is actually from the future and is aware of what this thing can do, wants to run away somewhere tropical and off the grid to drink pina coladas and wait for the end of the world. Danny agrees with Sarah and wants to fight, and Carl is a cuck, like we pointed out, so he just goes with the majority. So they teach Danny to shoot with the ancient technique of anger equals accuracy, and now that Mexican Jackie is a badass and her bangs are refeathered, it's time to resume the mission. Sarah just knows a guy in the military who can get them an EMP, which apparently is super rare and also never missed when stolen. So perfect. Arnold says goodbye to his family. Apparently he warned them that the day would come when he would have to leave, and they split town because the place was no longer safe. Because fuck his family. Sarah goes to meet with her military contact, who apparently just gives away top secret weapons to his friends. We can assume this is a super secret meeting, and nobody knew that they would be there or who would be involved, but wait! Rev 9 found his chopper! And apparently he's been flying around looking for the Drapes van all day. And luckily he found it! At night. Undercover, when they had left no clues at the cabin as to where they were going. I would say maybe he tracked the van's tire tracks, but unless they drove through dense forest, that wasn't the case. So this treasonous piece of crap takes some lead, and for some reason instead of taking cover, they jump into a military cargo jet they will absolutely be tracked in and shot down momentarily. But the Rev 9 is Jet Li apparently, and after a little bullet porn, Sarah sees her opportunity to finally kill two birds with one stone and drops Carl's van on an innocent family home. But unfortunately, she misses Carl with the van because Mexican Jackie snitches at the last second, and Arnold is not given an honorable death. The Rev 9 can apparently handle falls at terminal velocity without flinching and resumes his pursuit. Arnold busts into the cockpit as Dylan Roof explains how he saw the A-Team survive this scenario once in a movie. Then he tells Dylan Roof that he regrets to inform them, but their super weapon was destroyed because everything in this movie is stupid and without good reason. Realizing that he has now been reduced to C-3PO, Arnold calculates their odds of winning with the available weapons is around 12%. Even though we clearly saw Sarah one-arm this thing an hour ago. Oh well. The military is giving the cargo plane an escort until they get the okay to light this thing up. When the Rev 9 shows up to give us what would be a pretty cool zero-G fight scene if we hadn't already blown our fear of heights nut a few minutes ago. They enact the A-Team movie plan as Arnold and the Rev 9 box until Arnold's had enough of this stupid scene and tries to kill them all but fails. The Hummer's away, but one of the chutes isn't opening, so Grace has to crawl around in the sky and fix it. Did this scene need another obstacle? No. Did it last long enough for us to care? No. Does Grace look at all stressed out that she's dangling over oblivion? No. Screw it. Suspense, right? No. So after killing multiple Terminators, fighting out of a plane crash, surviving a landing in a Hummer via the A-Team movie plan, Sarah finally feels pain and we get a call back to her old shoulder injury. But luckily, Danny's good at everything. She just pops that sucker back into place. No time to Miyagi heal now though, because the Rev 9 is back. They do some more stunts that should completely obliterate them, and nobody trying to keep anyone alive would ever do. And we ignore the laws of physics to get an unnecessary underwater escape scene that pretends the Colorado River is some ocean underneath the surface. And yet only this wide at the top. Seriously, look. All this, and this is what was at the surface. What kind of magical water realm lies at the bottom of the Colorado River? But luckily, we've arrived at the last thing you need in a Terminator movie, an industrial facility. The girls break into the dam and are promptly confronted by the Rev 9, who has no need to negotiate with these basically unarmed assholes, so he starts negotiating with these unarmed assholes. But the T-800 refuses his offer because he's a cuck now, and the fight is on. They begin fist fighting this killing machine that has effectively slaughtered its way through the American Southwest for the last couple days, and throw his ass in a turbine, which apparently weakens it just enough where Jackie from that 70s show and Arnold can reenact the Terminator 3 ending. And then for good measure, Sarah and Danny also reenact the Terminator 1 ending. The end. That was Terminator Dark Fate. A movie so bad, not only will I never trust women again, I hate James Cameron now for even allowing his name to be put on this crap. At very least, Paul Feig can say that his Ghostbusters didn't necessarily rip off the originals. In fact, he would have done well to consider the original films more than having his actors improv that abomination. But not Tim Miller. No. Not only was his reboot a crappy ripoff, it also mutilates the original canon and puts together a Franken-movie-style patchwork replica that's so disgusting, much like Frankenstein, we ran from it as fast as we could. My buddy Unknown Archive said once that this film was like the drink surge. You're like, hey, I haven't had a surge since the 90s, and I loved it then. But then you drink it and it's disgusting crap of the highest order? I disagree. Terminator Duck Fart is like if you drank that can of Surge and a bunch of women and male feminists all took turns pissing in it, then tried to convince you that if you didn't finish the whole can, you just hate women. Because it's impossible for anyone to just hate drinking piss, right? I'm Adonis Paul, and Terminator Dark Fate was piss.